Welcome to the Global Pulse, a short video series where our experts break down a trending topic in international business and why it matters to you.
Brazil is once again facing economic problems. So, a brief summary of what's going on. A few years ago, Brazil started a ceiling for government expenses. So, the logic was that that would give some assurance to markets that the government would not be spending too much, and then you would be able to attract investors. The problem is with COVID, the need for expenses has grown as almost all major economies in the world. Brazil had to help a lot of the lower income segments of the population, and that started to create pressures on the expense side. And the government cannot spend more than a certain amount every year given this ceiling. And then what do you do, right? So do you start cutting on other expenses? But there's no much room for cuts because a lot of those expenses are committed to, for example, government employees, and they cannot be fired. So it's a puzzle that is hard to solve. How do you solve this problem? And so compounded to that, so the approval ratings of Bolsonaro, the president, have been going down and down, and he started facing pressures from politicians to give more money, especially to the poor, to the lower income levels in Brazil. So this 2 weeks ago or so, he decided to increase the amount of money that they are giving to the poor, but that will create a problem in the ceiling of expenses of the government. So that is once again breaking the trust of markets, saying, okay, Brazil is not able to keep its commitments. But the problem is there, right? At the same time that you have to keep some commitments, how do you help the economy to grow? The economy with COVID suffered a lot, and it's not growing as it should. And there is inflation as well, which is taking away purchasing power, especially at the lower income levels. So Brazil is in a big mess. So part of that is completely the blame of the president. And if you look at the finance minister, which I know personally, he hired me for my first job as a faculty member, so I have known him for some time. And I believe he has good intentions. He knows some of the problems of Brazil, but at the same time, I don't agree with some of his policies. And even he's trying to do some things, but he's always his projects for change are always blocked by Congress or by the government. So he's not able to implement the changes that are some of the changes that are needed. So the only way out for Brazil at this point in time would be on the tax side, increasing the revenues. It's hard. I mean, on a per capita basis, Brazil has a relatively low taxes. So Brazil doesn't have a lot of money per capita to spend with the citizens because the GDP is not that high. So how do you go over that issue, especially in times where that post-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, where you need more government help in the economy? You would need to change a little bit on the tax side, right? The tax code in Brazil is still highly regressive. The poor pay much more than the rich ones. Income taxes are relatively low, especially for high-income people. Very high-income people pay like 3 or 4% of a real income tax rate, whereas middle class pays 27%. Due to exemptions, etc., so the rich are able to get by with much lower real rates. And most of the taxes in Brazil also come from the products, which so the poor people, most of the money goes to buy products, and those are taxed at very high rates, and the wealthy pay proportionally very, very low income tax. But nobody is willing to fight that fight. Nobody is willing to increase the income tax rate for the wealthy. So there is no solution for this dilemma. Either you cut costs, but there is not much room to cut costs. There is some room for efficiencies, but it's it. The country is it has to make a lot of investments and is not able to make those investments. Or do you work on the revenue side, and the revenue side is taxation? But this government won't do that. And so the only hope for Brazil is if there is a change in government in the next election next year, and then a change in the approach and the policies to achieve a balanced budget, to achieve trust from the markets, but at the same time be able to invest the money that Brazil still needs to invest. There are a lot of opportunities for private companies, a lot of opportunities for, there are a lot of potential growth opportunities in Brazil, but this problem in public debt and the way Brazil is handling the crisis, this is not working, and at least in the short term, probably there won't be easy solutions.